So welcome everyone to our program, New Dawn, New Day. This is going to be a discussion of economic justice, racial equity, and social impact investing with the wonderful Mayor Asia Brown. My name is Sabrina Conyers, and I'm a partner in the tax practice here at Nelson Mullins in the Charlotte office. This program that we're having today is sponsored by our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, which is chaired by Deborah Thompson, and also by Bridge Together, which is our Black attorney affinity group here at the firm. Bridge Together is a relatively new affinity group, and the name stands for, at least Bridge, stands for bringing reflection, intention, development goals, and equity together. New Dawn, New Day, this discussion we're having with Mayor Brown is our first program, and we are delighted to have her with us today. Mayor Asia Brown made history, quickly becoming a national trailblazer when she was elected to be mayor of the City of Compton at the age of 31. She's the youngest mayor actually to have been elected in that city. She's an innovative leader that draws on her expertise in urban planning, economic development, as well as just being a community servant. And she draws on that expertise in order to create really transformational change for her community. Mayor Brown quickly became known for her pragmatic 12-point vision for Compton revitalization strategy. In implementing that plan, she was able to deploy evidence-based initiatives in order to create meaningful change for the Comptonians and her constituents. She was also able to, just by, again, utilizing her skills in multifaceted areas, she was able to attract record levels of private sector investment into the community. And some of that is what we're going to be talking about today. Mayor Brown, has focused a lot of her efforts on just combating economic inequality, racial justice, health equity, and we are so fortunate to be able to, in the last 6 months, be able to kind of help her as well as the city in a few of their initiatives. And so we're really excited about the work that we're doing with them. One of the entities that actually is a client of the firm is the Compton Community Development Corporation. And that entity is a new nonprofit that's spearheaded by Mayor Brown. She and her team of very dedicated community leaders are really utilizing kind of, these are my words, not hers, but they're really utilizing kind of the resurgence of our nation's attention on the needs of communities of color, specifically of Compton, to really kind of catapult Compton into kind of, to catapult Compton forward with a focus on utilizing the groundbreaking initiatives that address, health, economic equality, social justice, racial equity issues, and she's utilizing groundbreaking initiatives through CCDC to really help Comptonians and the community to catapult forward. So welcome, Mayor Brown. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Sabrina. I'm looking forward to speaking with you all today.
Great. So can you just kind of start off by telling us a little bit about your journey to becoming mayor? How did you get there? What made you decide to run?
Yes. Well, my career began in urban planning and economic development specifically, and so I had served communities very intentionally, focusing on underserved cities for about a decade. And I was recruited to come head up capital projects in Compton. And just in my private life, I had actually started to spend a lot of just personal time in the community, working with my local church in various capacities with youth development, and then also just general outreach. And so within a few months' time, my husband and I, we bought a home there, which was really 1 block away from City Hall in this new development. And then my church was like another block east in the other direction. And I just found myself right in the center of the city. And so I really wanted to just commit to serving the city in the best way that I could and just using my skill sets. And so as I began working with the city, I saw so much opportunity, but then a lot of missed potential. And I recognized very quickly that if we didn't have a pragmatic leader, we really couldn't catapult in the the way that I knew Compton had the capacity to move forward. And so I began looking for a new mayor. And everyone that I talked with, they said, absolutely not. And I even spoke with my husband, who we're best friends, been together for over 20 years. He's like, Asia Brown, you were made for this, you should do this. And he wrote me a very large campaign contribution. And so I stepped out on faith, and really with the support of the community, it was just overwhelming. We embarked on the journey, and I ran against 11 other candidates. The sitting mayor at the time, who had served for 12 years, the mayor that preceded him, which had served for 8 years, and together they were just this Compton dynasty. And I was not supposed to win, but I did, and came out in the primary as the top vote getter. Ultimately won in the general by 64%, and really utilized this Vision for Compton strategy as the focal point for my campaign. It wasn't Asia Brown for mayor, it was New Vision for Compton. And that really began with the people in my community. I sat out doing focus groups and really honed in on the issues that were most important to my community. And then I developed the 12-point strategy to address those issues in a very strategic and really a realistic way. And so that plan really connected with the hearts of the community. And I really believe that's how I was able to garner widespread support.
That is wonderful. And so in thinking about just the 12-point plan, what was just your vision? What did you want to see for Compton?
My vision for Compton was really simple, just a healthy and whole community. I look at cities as systems, and when there's inequalities or imbalances, that's when that creates an environment that's toxic for growth and sustainability. And so I addressed just the things that strengthen families. So thinking about how we could create youth development and public safety and a healthy Compton, thinking about health inequalities, and then really bringing in culture and arts as a catalyst to really heal and to also project a new image for the city that was really rooted in the rich culture that is Compton. Our city is 138 years old, and so it's world renowned, but really because of 90s gangster rap, and that's such a narrow focus. It was really about reinstituting the rich culture of Compton, and then on the city side, using just my experience and expertise, understood we needed to update basic city policies and plans to improve transparency, efficiency, getting our finances in order. Compton had a very dire history of just internal corruption, mismanagement, and really it's taken almost 8 years to finish our financial recovery, which I'm happy that we're almost complete with that. But then also focusing on very intentional infrastructure growth as well. And so recognizing that if we wanted to be serious about attracting new development, that the city also had to do its part by investing in infrastructure, and to also project a very forward-moving and progressive direction for the community.
So, so all of that sounds like a really kind of heavy lift, right? And at least to me. and in thinking about that, my next question is, so coming in, being a new, a new mayor, kind of displacing an older regime, you're a younger mayor. How did you, in order to really kind of get all of that accomplished, you would have to kind of, make sure that the ground, the soil is kind of fertile or ripe to really receive, right, what you'd like to accomplish there. And so how did you do that? How did you do the pre-work? What pre-work did you have to do to really just get the community to buy into what you wanted to see for it?
I really focus, Sabrina, on the issues. I think so much of politics is really focused on people, but I really helped hone the community into our most pressing issues. And at the time, I had just taken office, and we experienced a big spike in crime, violent crime. And so I immediately just put our oxygen mask on and assembled a community team of stakeholders that included all levels of law enforcement as well, to start addressing gang prevention and gang intervention. So we developed youth programs. Then we also had a strategy long-term to begin working on gang intervention to really get to the root causes of violence in our community. And then, which I also recognized was very closely tied to economic opportunities. And so at the very same time, I utilized just this kind of fresh wave and just the new attention on Compton to really reintroduce our economic potential and highlighting the opportunities that we had for growth and development. And I was able to garner the attention of several Fortune 500 companies that ultimately decided to invest heavily in transformed vacant areas in the city. We developed over 2 million square feet of new logistics centers that ultimately created almost 2,000 jobs for Compton residents. And then at the same time, I enacted policies that mandated local hiring, that also had training programs. And so we were able to actually connect those that were in the margins, so the former gang members and those that were just very hard to place, with custom training programs that gave them first access to construction jobs and pathways for upward mobility. And ultimately, we moved into additional youth development expansion programs. And then at the same time, we were also connecting with Compton natives. Dr. Dre was an early stakeholder that committed to investing in a new youth performing arts center. So that was a big boost, really providing the community, I think, with some much needed affirmation that they were investment worthy. And so it created this new phenomenon in the community that was just positive for once in a long time. And all of that, I think, worked to create this synergy that ultimately continued to propel the city forward.
So you were talking about just kind of helping to fix some of the economic issues, access to jobs, for Comptonians. But how did you get the Fortune 500 companies to kind of buy in? How did you get them to even, be committed to making sure that the residents of Compton were able to not only secure those jobs, but were able to keep those jobs, right? Because the sustaining of that income is really the important part, right? So how did you do that?
Well, just sharing with the various companies that they have an opportunity to be a stakeholder, not only in investing in the community, but also in the long-term sustainability of their investment. It just makes sense to invest in people in order to improve safety and the ultimate success of their investment. And so I asked them not only to become investors, but to really be stakeholders and to think about how they can invest on the front end into our community as they would in any other city. And so they made a commitment, and we negotiated through community benefits agreements that really highlighted very specific, not only financial investment, but also providing them with training and access, educational programs, also exposure to their industries for our local schools. So it was really a partnership that we were extending to them to be a part of Compton's upward trajectory. And Compton is really very strategically located. We're in the exact center of Los Angeles County. We're just north of the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, which is 90% of the nation's goods movement. We're also just directly east of Los Angeles International Airport. Also in very close proximity to Long Beach Airport. And so we are heavily connected, and we are a critical corridor. So I knew that they had interest in being in this area. And because of the city's historic just poor reputation, our land values were still very suppressed in comparison to other places. So I knew that it made good economic sense, but I also extended just the new vision for the community, but inviting them to be stakeholders and to be a part of our growth. And they've all done extremely well, and they're happy that they made that commitment to really be entrenched in the community, because it ultimately helped with the sustainability of their investment.
Did you find that everyone was eager and ready to come along, or were there some stakeholders that just said we're not interested?
Yes, well, no, everyone was not interested, but the ones that were, it took quite a few just conversations. They came to visit the city. I went to visit them. We had an extensive courting process, but I think with the synergy that we were able to create in other areas, and just the continual good exposure of the city under my leadership, I think that it gave them comfort as time went on to really just make the jump, and we were able to have that success together.
Good. So we were talking about kind of economics. What about health? You mentioned a little bit about education and kind of expanding educational offerings, but let's talk a little bit about like health and housing. What did you do there? Tell us about kind of what was included in your plan for Compton, and what you did in those areas.
Absolutely. We focused heavily on attracting new medical facilities. We were very poorly served in that particular cluster. And so we were able to secure 4 new very high-end clinics to serve the Compton community. And they in turn not only invested heavily in brought state-of-the-art equipment and just really elevated the level of care for our community, but they also committed to being stakeholders. And so they also brought a whole new level of service and wellness programs and outreach, and really customized their care to our community. So they had a very specific type of outreach, even transportation programs, and they really understood our community and how to reach them. And I think that ultimately helped with their success as well. And then on the housing front, we focused on not only affordable housing, but market rate housing. And we were successful in building some much needed senior housing. We also created some opportunities for new residential communities that were very successful. They sold out very quickly, and we were able to, again, attract just higher level incomes into the community, which ultimately helped with economic development and wellness and more just involvement in the community. So we were able to build 2 new housing communities, and then we currently have 4 in the pipeline, with the addition of a new downtown community, which will offer the city's first a rental product in probably 50 years. So we're very intentional on hoping to attract younger professionals that aren't interested in home ownership at this point, but can definitely provide a great benefit to the community.
And so when you think about kind of just community growth, and a lot of times the struggle in trying to kind of grow, bring new initiatives, and just expand, well, I'll just say grow a community, a lot of times the struggle is, well, how do you then still kind of take care of the people who've been there, the people who may not be able to kind of economically climb the ladder, right? How do you still kind of make sure that you are not neglecting that group of people? And so, I know about the Compton Pledge, but I'd love to hear you to kind of talk about the Compton Pledge, talk about the importance of, or what you saw as the need you were filling, even with the Compton Pledge and the guaranteed income program there.
Absolutely. So the Compton Pledge is our piloted guaranteed income program, which we are servicing 800 Compton residents and providing them with direct cash bi-monthly payments for 2 years. And our team raised $8 million to provide a range of stipends from $300 to $600 every 2 weeks, depending on family size. And our pilot was very unique. I was very specific on what I wanted to measure, and we were focused on really well-being, how people are, how do they feel, how does their outlook change with the additional income, and really recognizing that PTSD in communities of color, especially Compton, is very significant. And there are statistics that demonstrate that PTSD is in higher proportions than those that have actually served in wars. And so recognizing that the compounded trauma of inequality and racial injustice is something that people deal with every day. So we really wanted to measure how this income changes their outlook. And then ultimately, we wanted to measure their financial health and wellness. So we understand the community, many rely on predatory lending for basic financial services. And so part of our program is providing free checking account, and then also accounts, and then also direct financial coaching with one-on-one financial experts, and then also providing them with additional tools and benefits throughout the 2-year period. And so our program actually began, we did our soft launch in December, and we are now completely enrolled with the 800 Compton residents as of last week. And so those disbursements began December and January, and now they'll be continuing on for the next 2 years.
It's amazing, and it's just in, it's clear that you've recognized kind of the need for having just additional kind of guaranteed or a sustainable additional level of income. You know, and people may ask the question, well, you know, why isn't the current kind of maybe public benefits or other social service benefits, why isn't that enough? And I guess, you know, that's my question to you is what did you realize, or why was that not enough to help people to kind of sustain their well-being?
From Sabrina, from my personal experience, I was raised by a single mother, and my mother decided to work. She probably could have earned more money on public assistance at some point, but she decided to work, and I have a twin brother. So she needed everything at the exact same time. And I remember so many times growing up that if an unplanned expense arose, that we would then be insecure housing wise, or we would have utilities shut off often because my mother just couldn't juggle the two. And my mother never missed a day of work. She worked at Jet Propulsion Laboratory. She was just a wonderful, powerful woman, never complained, and just is to me an epitome of what a hard worker is. And I think there's such a misnomer that poor people or people that are in poverty are lazy, or they are not working hard for upper mobility, and that's just not the case. And so I recognize that a guaranteed income, even if it was $200, would have made a world of difference for my mother to even be able to begin to save and to have just a safety net when things arise. And so with guaranteed income, I recognize that it's an opportunity to provide just a stable stipend for people that either don't qualify for traditional public assistance, those that are either undocumented, or those that have been formerly incarcerated that just don't qualify, or even those that are working poor and that they choose to work maybe for additional benefits or whatever their decisions are, but they still could use additional help. And so we recognize that this was a great opportunity to make an impact, and especially within the COVID-19 pandemic, where there were so many families that were without direct aid. And we've seen the CARES Act carry out for 6 months, and we're now a year into the pandemic, and there's only been 2 direct disbursements thus far. And so people are in need of direct relief. And I think we're seeing that now with guaranteed income as a great opportunity to provide that.
Mm-hmm. And so your goal for the program is it short term, or is it permanent? Is it are you kind of looking to just have kind of a temporary cash infusion, or would you like to see this be kind of a permanent kind of financial solution?
We would like this to be a permanent financial solution. And as we rolled out the Compton Community Development Corporation, and we're looking forward to launching our community development financing institution, we'd like to redirect proceeds in order to really sustain this program in the long term. Our partner, Jane Family Institute, they also have created a wonderful model for sustainability for the city's consideration. And so my hope is that through various means, we can also bring this forward to the residents of Compton and give them the opportunity to support ongoing direct Compton residents that have the greatest need. Because recognizing that we're all connected, and what happens to one family ultimately impacts the other. And lastly, I just saw such an outpouring of support for people that know without a shadow of a doubt that they don't qualify for the program, but they were happy that people in the community were getting their relief, because we're all connected. So I would love to see this continue on, and we plan to work toward that goal.
That's great. And so you are also there are other cities around the country that are doing this as well, right? So this is really a national movement. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Guaranteed income is not a new concept. It was actually spearheaded by Dr. Martin Luther King, and he launched the People's Platform right before he was assassinated. But more recently, Stockton Mayor, or former Mayor Michael Tubbs, did a very visible pilot in Stockton several years ago. And he also made the pledge and launched the Mayors for Guaranteed Income initiative, which I'm also a member. It's really targeting mayors across the nation to make the pledge to also institute pilots within their communities to lend to the greater movement for guaranteed income on a national level. So we are committed collectively to moving that work forward.
That's yeah, that's wonderful, and it's been quite honestly just a privilege to be able to learn, more about the need, more about the program, but then also just to be able to kind of work alongside you in helping to stand that up. It's just really been a privilege. I think about what I think about when I think about the Compton Pledge is how important it has been, for philanthropic stakeholders to kind of come to the table to really kind of help to get this done. And so in thinking about that, maybe talk a little bit about kind of how important just the philanthropic community, as well as the just other stakeholders you've had involved in not just guaranteed income, but even in helping to just bring additional economic growth to the city. Kind of how important have your kind of partners been in this process?
Partners have just been absolutely essential for my service as mayor in the city. I came in with a very significant deficit and just didn't have additional income to even hire additional staff or to, really have an additional work stream. But because of partners along the way, from the Operation Hope, John Hope Bryant, he provided my office with fellows, which were essential to laying the foundation for a lot of our work for gang intervention, writing grants, ultimately bringing new capital into the community. Most people don't know the McCain Family Institute. They have also supported my office for 3 cycles with fellows that have served for 1-year terms, which have been tremendous and had significant impact in the work that we've done together in Compton. More recently, Sabrina, your firm, with your leadership and also Richard's support, you all have really been able to provide the groundwork and enabled us to launch Compton Community Development Corporation, which is a catalytic arm for growth in the community. And we would not have been able to start without you all, and having that ongoing and initial support to ensure that legally we were structured the right way, because that was very important to me, is to start on firm ground, because you only get one chance to start. And so I wanted to make sure everything was decent and in order, and you all enabled us to be able to do that. So partners have been absolutely essential for all of the work that we've been able to do. And I know that the model that we built with the Community Development Corporation is only going to amplify our ability to bring partners together around initiatives and really pooling investment to have the greatest impact.
When you look for partners who to help you, kind of, what are you looking for? Is it synergies around mission? Is it synergies around well, you tell me, kind of what synergies are you really kind of looking for there? Who is a great partner for you in the work that you're doing?
For me, definitely the mission is important. I believe that where there's common interest, that's where support actually is derived. But also it's important for me to work with partners that have just a heart for people, a heart for the community. Also recognize that this isn't about giving, a community a handout, but this is about really providing opportunities for resilience and growth, and to be a catalyst for more change. And so I'm really always focused on ensuring that our missions are aligned, that we are very clear on what our outcomes can be. And then also at the heart of our partners is just really important to me personally, to work with people that have a love and respect for my community.
Yeah, it's absolutely critical. So when you think about just you've done a lot in Compton, but there's still also, right, so much to still do. And when you think about just continuing to create transformational change, what are the most kind of crucial elements of that recipe, right? So when you look at where you want to kind of see Compton in 5-10 years, kind of what is critical to you in order for the vision for Compton to fully come to fruition?
I think for me, it's critical to have a very intentional pipeline of qualified leadership in the community. Our city has suffered historically from just corruption, and those that have matriculated into office and ultimately have taken the city down just a dark road. And so for me, I've been very intentional in developing the next generation of leaders. And so I'd like to see that continue. Also, continuing just to keep the mission in the forefront of what we're doing. And I believe that Compton Community Development Corporation will be just a guiding light for the city's continued growth and investment. And then also having transparency is very important to me, having a trusted institution that can be that catalyst and really garner not only support, but financial investment. And then also to really project our outcomes in a very measurable and very deliberate way is critical, because I believe that social impact investment should have a return on that investment. And so we are very intentional with creating vehicles to manage our data and project that to our stakeholders and our investors. And then also just keeping the community at the forefront. A lot of what we are planning is really focusing on strengthening small businesses, which are the backbones of many of our communities. And then also really focusing on home ownership and building generational wealth as the direct assault to poverty. Recognizing that poverty and systemic injustice and racism is very closely tied. And it's important for us to really be able to create vehicles that really combat those inequalities and access the capital through our community development financing institution is really going to level the playing field in a very powerful and intentional way. So just keeping our missions at the forefront, continuing to communicate and project what we're doing and where we're going. And then just keeping the community first is important to me, because I definitely want to continue our efforts, but also strengthen our existing fabric. It's great to attract new growth, but the ultimate measure of success for me is that we're building strong people from the fabric of our community. I can not hear you. I don't know what happened.
It's frozen.
You're back on.
Okay, I can hear you.
Okay, all right. Apologies for that. So you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. I am sorry. I'm not sure what happened there, but apologies. So one of the things, I wanted to ask you, just in thinking again about, you were talking about your partners within the community and what's going to be really kind of important, or the crucial elements to continue to create the change that we need to see for the city. And so, when you think about maybe the categories of banking and finance, employment, housing, health, education, even racial justice, what projects do you think would have kind of the most impact? And maybe, in order of priority, if you can talk about kind of where you see kind of the greatest need, and what you're continuing to kind of attack, or is it everything at the same time?
It's being mindful of all of the needs, but I really believe the Community Development Financing Institution will be a very powerful force for equity and access for the community. I know that it will create opportunities and also generate income that we can just continue to reinvest in the community. And so that is ultimately a priority. I think that will be a great convener for stakeholders as well. And then also really focusing on addressing the inequalities within our community through direct investment. So the CDFI is very critical. At the same time, we are working on the Innovation Hub in Compton, which will be a premier and catalytic project in itself, but also will, in my opinion, create a whole new just creative economy in Compton, and really focusing on technology and arts as a pathway for upward mobility, and also just catapulting this next generation into the global market. There's such a skills demand for those in tech, and so we're looking at also creating educational institutions that also can fill those gaps in a very intentional and pragmatic way.
So when you think about kind of, if you were asked kind of right now, what is, if you're speaking to a community of potential stakeholders, you know, people who want to come in and invest, you know, what is your most immediate need?
Our most immediate need, I believe, is definitely intellectual capital, but also financial support for the foundational aspects of our financial institutions, also for the Innovation Hub. That will be a multi-year project, but it will create essentially our own research and development facility right here in the city of Compton. So definitely having financial support and investment for those efforts are essential so that we can continue to build the team essential for really executing on these projects in a timely manner.
And one of the things I know we touched on a little bit, but I was hoping you can maybe give us a little bit more insight is, you know, a lot of, you know, when people think about community development, of course, they think about just kind of real estate development as well. And so on that landscape, kind of what are some of the things that are happening? What type of investment, what's happening, and what type of investments are you looking for on even the real estate and development end?
Yes, there are several very just catalytic projects that are in the pipeline now. There's the Downtown Compton project. As I mentioned, the Innovation Hub is the cornerstone of this project, but there's also about 120 housing units that will be aligned with this project. And so the mix and the composition is still very fluid, as it just really depends on funding sources that are secured over the next 90 days. But we envision it really being an artist community where we can attract a very specific demographic to this area. There's also, we have a casino and hotel in Compton that's on the southern edge, and the hotel, the city is actually one of the landowners there, and we are now embarking on a master plan project for that particular area, but we envision it being an entertainment complex. There's currently casino that's a part of the hotel, but we are envisioning building a standalone casino and then also a convention space so that we can actually have various events and conventions within the community, and then also to have some mixed use. And so that's a huge opportunity. It's also very visual from where it's located, and it's also on the Blue Line, which is the heaviest utilized light rail line in the nation. And so it has its own station there. There's also a specific plan that was conducted recently. So it has all of the infrastructure there for some awesome growth. And then there's also a water feature. It's located along the Compton Creek, which is a tributary of the LA River. And so there's also an opportunity for some environmental restoration and to have a very wonderful attraction in that area. And so that's also an opportunity. And then there's several, the city successor agency owns about 20 parcels that are currently either, I would say about 50% of them are under contract, but there's still about 10 and very significant and very visible areas that are still available for investment. And so we'll be assembling a new round of investors for their first look at these opportunities as well.
Okay. So lots of new developments, just lots of excitement. You know, of course, you know, a lot of people just want to, there's so many great projects going on in Compton. I'm sure you've got lots of people kind of knocking at the door, figuring out how we can help. And I think it's really important for even stakeholders to understand, right, what your needs are and what would be most impactful for you, because, you know, it's not just about the economic vision, but it's pairing that, right, with the vision for the community and you know, in order to be able to work together. So I just think that's really important. So let's talk a little bit about kind of innovation. Where do you see the greatest need, you know, for, well, what are things that Compton is kind of doing to kind of increase in the area of innovation, or where's the greatest need for innovation in the community?
We are currently working with USC. They have committed to building an innovation, tech, and entrepreneurship high school in the city. It's actually a direct linkage to the Iveen and Young Academy that was built several years ago. But this will be some very essential infrastructure for our young people to be developed in the fields of innovation and tech and entrepreneurship, and then being able to have a pipeline directly to the innovation hub that we're building, I think will be very powerful. And then we're also currently in conversations with a Holberson School, which is they're really a tech. They're a tech magnet that was actually developed by some tech experts out of Silicon Valley, but they recognized that they were receiving Ivy League graduates that were still not prepared to really get into the field of tech because they were missing some very specific skills. And so they created a curriculum that is a 12 or 18-month program, very intensive, but they are producing people that at a 90% rate are being hired in the tech industry and are earning six-figure incomes. And so we are now working through also having that level of instruction in Compton to also be the bridge. So after we have the high school developed, we'll also have something for post-high school or post-secondary education. And then they'll obviously have an opportunity if they like to go to a four-year university if that's their choice. But really making sure that we can address the skills mismatch and then also create a skilled workforce for the global economy.
Yeah. So I was also just thinking about I was just realizing that as we've discussed a lot of elements of just kind of the economic growth and the needs of the community, and what it was taking me back to was 2020 and everything that happened just on the racial injustice kind of front. And can you just tell us a little bit about how the impact of what happened with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and how did it impact the Compton community, and how were you able to kind of help really the community to try to come together and to heal through all of that?
2020 was just such a tough year,
Right.
and obviously as the racial just injustices were amplified with George Floyd and others that lost their life to law enforcement, the community of Compton was just hurting and mourning. And at the same time, there was a young man, Andreas Gallardo, who was really murdered by the sheriff's department. He was shot several times in the back, and at the very same time. And so the city was just very volatile and just felt a lot of pain. And so we organized a peace march, and it wasn't, against the police. It was just for peace in Compton, because we were really at a point where the community could have rioted like our neighboring cities long south of us. They had several riots in their community. And so we were cognizant that we needed to respond in a way that was conducive to peace. And so we organized a march, and thousands of residents came out. And we just talked about our need to heal, and how the only way that we can combat hate and violence and get to the community is really to pour out more love and more strength and more resilience. And so it was really a recommitment and a reaffirmation of Compton values and what we plan to do to move forward as a community. And so as an outpouring of that, there were several groups that were started, and they've been able to do just peaceful demonstrations in the community. They've started groups to really amplify our culture and bring people together outdoors around the equestrian community. Most people don't know we have a very strong and a longstanding equestrian and agricultural community in Compton. So we have the Compton Cowboys and coming together, and it's just been really a very intentional outpouring of just love on our city. And so that's how we've been able to really combat a lot of the negativity and the hate that really has plagued our nation for since its inception.
So so now you're kind of at the end of your second term. You've been mayor for over 8 years. What is your vision for the next 8 years?
My vision for the next 8 years is just continued growth and upward trajectory. I think that we've overcome a lot of our just former negative stigma, and in order to replace the negative, you need to replace it with things that are positive. So I really see just continued catalytic growth with our people here. I think we'll see a continued resurgence of just young leadership dominating in different areas of our community. Also, I think we'll continue with reinvestment. I think we'll also really just blossom in a new level of culture and arts. As part of our hub, we're also building a museum to really help inform our own community about our rich history and culture, and also to just reaffirm our own identity. And I think that where there's a lack of identity, that's where it's difficult to understand your purpose. And ultimately, if you don't understand your purpose, you can't be at peace and you can't be prosperous. So we really want to make sure that we can really amplify our culture and create intentional opportunities to really just spread the beauty of what our city is. And I think we'll continue to see growth and more investment, and also producing just wonderful, powerful people out of the city that are very intentional on bringing their ingenuity back and reinvesting.
That is that's wonderful. I was just thinking now. So my final question to you is, your grandmother was a resident of Compton, is that right? And
yes.
and it's my understanding that she was also a large part of your draw back to the city. What do you think she would think about Compton today?
I think my grandmother would be so proud and just hopeful about our city's future. And I know just from my mother that she was a strong proponent of just young people and strengthening young people. So I know that she will be very proud of where we are and also very confident about our city's upward trajectory.
And I'm very certain that she would absolutely be proud of you. Thank you, Mayor Brown, for just sharing your time with us. Thank you for sharing your vision, your efforts within the community, and giving us just more of a perspective on how we as service providers, as potential stakeholders, can help you continue to do what you're doing. We are honored to have you here and just really appreciate you taking the time to share with us.
Thank you, Sabrina, so much for having me. And I just like to, again, just thank you publicly for your investment in Compton that has really made all of the difference for this next phase of our growth. And I just like to thank your firm as well for all those that are working behind the scenes on our various ventures. But you all have truly been a catalyst for enabling us to actually enter into this new season for Compton. So thank you.
Well, we appreciate it. We are the ones who are honored. So thank you. And thank you all for who've joined us today. We appreciate, again, your time. We're happy that you could just sit down and have this conversation with us. Please, as you go back into your ecosystems and you think about kind of how you can create change within your communities, take pieces of this discussion with you. When we're looking to do things that are transformational, it's not just about kind of what you can benefit, right, from the investment you make in the community. It's really about how you are helping to transform the daily lives of the people who are there. And I think that can't be done without bridging that conversation and making sure that the community's voice is at the table at the same time that stakeholders and other service providers are looking to make investments in the community. And so we here at Nelson Mullins are really, really, and especially, I am just really I want to continue to make sure that as we have these conversations across the United States about impact investing and bringing needed resources into different communities, particularly communities of color, that when we do that, we're making sure to do it with thought, with heart, and making sure that we're really responding to the need. But so thank you all.